Hi everyone, welcome to my house. I am Nick Gardner, and I'll be reading you a piece of short fiction called All in the Family. Now that Abe's no longer shooting heroin, he sounds like a $50 self-help seminar, and the problem is I've seen this all before. The problem is the way my life keeps swirling down the shitter, I can't refute it, because for once my brother's doing better than I am. The problem is he's really thriving and he won't shut up about it. Abe tells me it's not luck but drug magic, that all his previous wrongs have undergone a reversal. He says, "No, Mags, drug magic's not pulling a rabbit out of a hat. It's like you ask the universe for what you need and you get it." He lies on his creeper under a Honda Civic ravaged with rust. He grunts, punches, a bolt cracks. He says, "Hand me the breaker bar, Mags." But I don't hand him the breaker bar because who the hell knows what a breaker bar is, and because I'm headed off to the community college where I'm working on my nursing degree so I can one day move beyond in-home health care, beyond renting a raggedy-assed house on Cleveland's west side. I could really use some drug magic now that rent is due and my last charge, Gertrude, is dead. I corner my Buick and shoot off my needs into the universe like Abe's told me to do, but nothing happens. I slow down in front of Cashmax loans, but I'm not that desperate yet. Abe says being desperate is the key to drug magic. Abe says the magic is that if you're desperate enough, you make it happen. Drug magic, to me, is the way these rusting Hondas appear and then vanish, how they beep in on a backing tow truck and brap their way out just inches from the ground, leaving Abe counting stacks of cash in the whirl of exhaust. Drug magic, to me, is the way the sink piles up with dishes and oily tools, while I'm off working nights, but when I wake up in the afternoon, it's scrubbed down to shimmers. It's why the hell I even let Abe stay here in the first place after all the shit he's put me through. In the letter I wrote to Abe while he was still off at rehab, I included an itemized list. Besides the credit card he stole, there were the arguments and lies, the family Christmases where I clenched my jaw while aunts and uncles told me how good Abe was doing now, how proud they were of him. That was after rehab's number 1 and number 2. I told them I wasn't proud. I was ashamed. And my uncle pinched my shoulder to a bruise and quoted scripture. "He who is without sin throws the first stone." I ground my teeth and learned to disappear. Then family Christmases altogether vanished when the family atomized and dispersed. I relived it all in the letter. There was the first time after rehab number 1 when Abe became a Buddhist and chanted his ohms from the couch while Mom and Dad fought over what to do with him. Or after rehab number 2, the one led by bodybuilders, where he chugged protein shakes and said things like, "The only way out is through." He punched holes in the wall while Mom packed her bags, tried to fit her life into the trunk of the car, and took off to Atlanta. It was all because of him, and the whole time I listened from my room in the basement because I was always home by curfew. When I finished writing that letter, I rewrote it without the wet smudges. I pulled up the blinds and there was Cleveland, family free. A week later, I skimmed Abe's response, then tossed it on the dining room table, lost it under piles of bills and ads, headed out to my night shift watching Gertrude fade away. I used to talk to Gertrude while I checked her vitals and fed her meds through the sleepless nights. I'd list the bones of the body, pose practice quiz questions about neurotransmitter deficiency in Parkinson's patients. I'd be wiping her ass while asking, what is the cause of most lawsuits involving nursing professionals? On good days, Gertrude would say something like, probably for wiping butts with cheap-ass TP. But as time went on, her words became gurgles, and she sat dead-eyed in front of the TV, while Archie Bunker screamed racist shit at the Jamaican doctor who was only trying to help. It was about midnight, and she was still watching All in the Family, gurgling away when I got the call from Abe that he was out of rehab and waiting on his flight to Cleveland. I was nice. I said, "How the fuck did you get my number?" He said, "Didn't you get my letter?" There was a quiver in his voice, and I wanted to see if I could break it. He said, "I've got nowhere else. You can say no. You should say no." A quaver, a sob. "Don't fucking cry," I said. "I'm busy watching a woman die." "I'll owe you. I'll pay you back. I'll pay you back double. I wish I didn't have to call you." Actual tears. I could almost hear them plop. Abe said, "They're hooking me up with a temp agency. 4 weeks, and I'll have a paycheck." What was I doing with my life anyways but passing meds to a dying lady? I didn't even have friends, really. All I had was the bubble of Tanya, the first shift caretaker, who replaced me every morning. When Tanya swung into the room with a "How are we feeling today?" I went to Walmart and bought a safe. At home, I poured all the beer I couldn't finish down the drain, drunkenly shoved the entire craft room in the closet to make space for the inflatable mattress. When the air pump stopped working, I blew into the nozzle until my cheeks stung, until the mattress was firm. Now Abe's upgraded to a queen-size bed and a box spring that he scored from Volunteers of America. His first real bed in 100 days of sobriety. He works his temp job at the thermostat factory in the evening and fixes up cars in his free time so he can sell them to the shady dudes who hang out in the Taco Bell parking lot at midnight, engines bare and shining beneath the streetlights. Now that Gertrude's dead and I'm scrounging for cash, I sit in front of the TV, flipping through note cards over muted All in the Family. It helps me remember the answers. After a year of third shift, I can't sleep at night. I squint my way through the front door in the morning to the screech of metal. Abe sanding paint bubbles to the rust below. He calls it patina, but it's just corrosion. Drug Magic is the yard filled with car parts without my permission. Its tires leaning against the garage, and a dude I don't know in a hoodie at the end of summer watching Abe buff the driver's side door to a linseed oil shine. There are new engines weighing down the crumbling shells of Volkswagen hatchbacks, glass pack exhausts revved by fender-bendered beaters. Abe says, "Just like my ugly mug, you can't see the magic 'cause it's under the hood." He knocks his fist against his goofy head. I say that maybe I should have just gone to rehab instead of college, gotten drug magic instead of this useless degree. Abe straightens to a lanky tower with hunched shoulders. "Okay, Mags, what's up?" I say, "Shit." Gertrude is dead and a tear dribbles down, tickles my upper lip. He moves like he's going to hug me, but when he looks over his shoulder at his friend, I step back. I wipe my face on my sleeve. I tell him I'm trying to do what's right too, but Gertrude has to go and die, and now I'm struggling with rent, and nothing's really going right at all. Abe pulls a wad of cash from his pocket, an inch thick of doubled over drug magic bills. He used to tote big folds of money like this when he was dealing. I remember Christmas '07, just before rehab #1, when he pulled off hundreds and low-fived them into everyone's palms as a gift, and then a couple hours later excused himself to tip from the toilet to the floor, smashing his head on the linoleum from a heavy-handed shot. Abe peels off some money. I shake my head, hold up my hand, no. He's already paid off his debt, his half of the bills. I can't ask for more. He says, "Mags, it's the least I can do." Like I was saying, you put your need out there, and the universe provides. I want to ask him if the universe cares that the cash is untaxed, coming from nefarious characters who hide their faces, leave cigarette butts in the yard. But I need the money. Maybe this is the drug part of the magic, the part that doesn't ask questions, slips what you need in your pocket without a word. The magic persists. It expands, becomes real. I pay rent and the next day get a call about a new client, Zachariah, at $15 an hour. His beard hangs down to his belly button, eyes set into the skull, and he's hardly any work at all because with his medication he becomes kind for a while, then passes out. When I get home, Abe's futzing with a puzzle of engine parts laid out and labeled with marker-scrawled masking tape on the garage floor. He stands to face me, all 6 feet of him, skeleton and muscle within billows of stained coveralls, the sunken cheeks and eyebrows. He says, Mags, they say you can't have recovery without honesty, and you can't adjust without trust. I'm already biting my lip. Feel the sleep draining from me. I say, trust, Abe? What the fuck did you do? I didn't do anything, he says. Stinkin' thinkin', Mags. I've been falling into it. He pulls his hand from his pocket. In his palm, cigarette pack cellophane, indiscernible pills. He says, I bought the car from Rust's Rex and found them beneath the back seat. They usually search before I get the cars. One time Randy found a wallet, another time a human finger. How crazy is that? I tell him crazy is my brother holding a crinkling baggie full of drugs when he hasn't even seen 6 months clean time. I tell him crazy is me thinking I can trust him. Trust is rust, I say. Trust is fucking out the window. Mags, he says, that incantatory calm in his voice. I didn't do it. The bag's still sealed. Then we were on the road. After he handed me the pills, we almost hugged again, but he broke the awkwardness with a request. A clutch assembly in Dayton, at an enormous discount. He says he needs me to come along. He needs someone to keep him in check, so he isn't alone with his thoughts. He puts on Neil Young's The Needle and the Damage Done, breathes this melody in with all its irony, shifts into fifth and pushes the gas to rumble us through countryside. Corn turned to chaff and husks on either side. We belt out every junkies like a setting sun, while the sun rises in his eyes, red in his cheeks, hands stable on the wheel. Drug magic is how old man Zechariah is fine once he takes his pills. He's a jittery, helpless grump through the day, but when he's high he calls me honey. He says, honey, you're a good girl. Drug magic is how, when he starts to have trouble swallowing, I crush the OxyContin with the back of a spoon, stir it into his orange juice. It's the way the pills make him sleep through the night so I can clean the house, then nap till sunrise. He bitches at the TV, and I bring his Oxy Orange, stick a straw in his mouth. I wonder how much this job would worry Abe, how far down he would spiral with that pile of powder in front of him. Zechariah chokes, spits the juice on the floor, claws the glass from my hand, burbling orange on his lap. You're trying to kill me. I seen you put that shit in there. I hold back a fuck. I'm sorry. It takes a half hour to calm him down. I mop up the floor, pull his bottle and pour them on the counter, flick through them pile to pile. Not enough left to get him through the week. My brother is a junkie and my coworkers know it. So many mornings I've bitched to my replacement how living with a recovering addict worries me, how I'm always questioning a reddened eye or wad of cash. These things run in the family. Now the bottle will be a pill short, and who do you blame? In the morning I have to park a block away. I come home to a house I don't recognize, grass prairieing around mounds of metal, hubcaps smashing the yard down to yellow. Car bodies on blocks covering every spot of concrete. There are clangings and clashings coming through the garage door. With clinicals, work, and school, I don't think I've seen Abe all week. I slam cupboard doors in the kitchen, not a coffee cup in sight. I curse Abe as I stomp through his bedroom, snatching mug after dredge-bottomed mug. Back in the kitchen I stop still and rustling, hands full of dirty dishes as he twists a butter knife into a greasy alternator. He says, Mags, you look like shit. I decide to break his smile. A cup cracks as I slam it on the counter. For fuck's sake, Abe, can you at least keep your grimy-ass car shit in the garage? I'm sorry, Mags. I couldn't find my flathead. I've just been picking up all these side jobs since they laid me off. He gestures with the alternator. Cash. Laid you off? Fuck, laid you off? Abe smiles that drug magic smile. Mags, no worries. I have a list of 20 people wanting oil changes. I was going to call my business Abe's Lincolns, but I don't really work on Lincolns. Got a caddy in the garage right now. I say that he should call his business Homeless Hondas because there's no way in hell I'm letting him run an illegal mechanics shop out of my house. Abe says, "Come on," and I see it now, that hope boiling in his mind, that need to repair, to keep working until he's too tired to work, to take something ruined and make it hum. No way in hell, I say, and this shit better be all cleaned up by the time I'm home. Abe asks, "When is that?" And I let the door answer for me. I once again count Zechariah's pills while he coughs and sputters. His brainstem is corroded, his memories, his vocabulary eaten by disease. I'm here because he has outlived friends and family, left them all behind. I'm here because he pays me, or his estate does, or whatever. It's business. I have a contract with his daughter who moved down south and never calls. Tonight, though, I have that crinkled cellophane drug magic in my purse. I cut the plastic and morphine tumbles out. It's not oxy, but the pills still powder and dissolve into OJ, and Zechariah will sleep, and no one will know the difference. Zechariah drinks through the straw without question this time. I sit with him until his eyes droop. He says, "Honey," and mumbles off to sleep. I manage the transfer lift from chair to bed, and he snores as I tuck him in. Tomorrow, I'll tell Abe there's a way we can do this. I've been thinking. We can't run a garage out of the house, but I'll say, filled with goodwill and enthusiasm, "Where there's a will." He'll say something equally vomit-inducing, like, "If you need it, the universe will deliver." And I'll roll my eyes and try not to slap him. He'll give me that drug magic grin, and we'll clean up the house together. We'll sweep up the rust, mow the yard, plant a damn garden. I don't know, we'll figure it out. We need to, and we'll use that need like a drug. He'll say, "You see, Mags, this shit works. Drug magic." And I'll just say, "Whatever. Fuck it. We'll make it happen, and if it doesn't work, we'll try something else."
Hello, my name is Matt Miller, and I'm an MFA candidate in poetry here at BGSU. Tonight, it is my great pleasure to introduce my fellow poet and friend, Turner Wilson. Turner Wilson was raised near the Uinta Mountains of eastern Utah. Wilson studied English and history at Southern Utah University, where he began experiments with blank verse and other traditional styles, leading to his first full-length collection, Apollo in the Desert. Wilson's work has been recently featured in Quatrain.Fish, Dreams Walking, and this summer he was awarded the Divine Fellowship for Poetry. His latest work examines several aspects of the human condition, from our relationship with nature to the relationship we have with ourselves. His attention to sound, story, and the lyric moment shine in his works such as The Brian Head Fire, where he brings us along to witness nature's awesome, destructive power. His poetry can also hold its own in bouts with logic and social systems, taking us on a wild ride in the process in works such as Umphalos, a journey to the true navel of the world. Please welcome Turner Wilson.
Hi everyone, my name is Turner Wilson. I'm an MFA candidate here at Bowling Green State University, and I'm going to be reading you some poems. Most of these poems are fairly new. I wrote the majority of them over the summer, but some of them are revisions of some older poems, some that may have appeared in my previous readings, but I think for the most part there's just one or two of those, so you guys are getting mostly fresh, brand new poems, and I think that you guys will like them. A lot of the poetry that I've been writing has been inspired by our newly compelled confinement and just kind of being stuck at home. It's really interesting how space and time have changed as, you know, the normal markers of our lives have kind of shifted with all the recent craziness. So this first poem was actually inspired by, you know, being at home and not going outside all that much. Especially, I wrote this right before April. This is Lake in April. A new panic sets in, the kind that gives language meaning, like the intentions of wind-blown grass. A cloud becoming a call to action, not floating like a cloud. Language can be measured in perfect pentameter, raised like the arm of Lake Erie to reach up to pale ankles in the gravel of the beach. I've never seen the lake in April. I'll say that its thick gray tongues loll out in a murmur, stuttering about how the nights are warmer and the air is getting thick enough to choke on if you don't know how to breathe it. The birds are in the trees, and that the lake is that lake, the prototypical lake that's in your dreams before you saw it for the first time. In a moment of tender oneness, you can slip out of your fleece pajama, self, body, mind, and float face down in that lake, letting the whole world spin into a grid, a bending, spinning perfection of silver, green, brown, blue, wood grain, brass, Russian olive, all at once. You'll see that days are numbers that have two sides, and that each time we speak, that the world is added to and is destroyed. Drift over through the water and look into the sun. Watch the sky cradle a heaviness that isn't mine, and think of potency and potential and limitless horizon. So this next poem is about waiting for mail, and was inspired by the habit I got into of checking the mail for MFA responses, response letters one way or the other. And there was one program in particular that they just never got back to me. They never sent me a letter one way or the other, but I just got into the habit of checking the mail every day at the same time. And that was an interesting source of regularity, even though I stopped expecting the letter. So this is forwarding address. Rain and shine, I would prostrate myself in the parking lot. Every day for months, bowing myself to face box 346, where a small fish mouth frowned at me, toothless and inscrutable. Little silver key to the little brass lock, votive regularity in the extension, in the turn, in the screech of internal mechanisms before revealing the cell. Emptiness divided into emptiness, enough to fill wicker baskets and to keep spilling in dusty clouds when I shake out my clothes. I would dream of breaking open that emptiness like a loaf of thick-crusted bread, that the caramelized slashes would break and peel neatly in my hand. Inside the bread would be a crumb of filling emptiness. I was disappointed that I wasn't able to receive your letter. One good thing that has come out of this whole pandemic situation has been it gives me an excuse to go camping much more often all through this summer. And so it's been a lot of fun to just kind of make that a more regular thing. And so this is a poem that was inspired by the experience of watching night fall and just being in a really, not having a phone or, there's no work to be done. I'm just watching night happen. And so this is a poem called Night Song. Night Song. Ambient, almost aquatic glow. 10 points west, then it topples off of me like a crown. It falls in the dirt and spits chips of adolescent lantern light through the trees. Compass points clinking in my front shirt pocket as I sit up. My name is not written on the clapboard register of hopes. I left my name in the silt and mud at the bottom of a marshy pond. Clarity is a lens. It's concave to the point of becoming a bubble. I don't want to dig either of them up. I will sit nameless and look at the pond for a long time. When 10 is waiting in the dirt, 11 comes and rolls down my back in slow drips that crisscross the points of my shoulder blades. Collarbones can be pressed and bleached. Night song in cuts. The smell of the woodshed, indigo, cavernous indigo, speaking in tongues, speaking in hands, speaking grins without teeth. An indigo adagio, wafting out and under and around all those chips of lantern light. 12 is nowhere to be found and is held in contempt. Alright, so this next poem is was published in the July issue of Dreams Walking, and my cat makes an appearance. Her name's Rosie, and she's kind of been my my companion through this whole thing. When I started, spending most of my time inside at home, she's just been right there with me the whole time. And so this was a poem about writing poems, and then having this little furry office mate hanging out with me during that process. So, marigolds. When my cat yawns, a marigold falls out of her mouth. Byzantine orange and rococo furls announce this whole poem is a lie. This next stanza also lies, and I'll repeat them until she slides along the sofa and yawns again. More flowers bloom in a cascading bouquet. The sky, the rain is clearing up, and the sky shreds itself, diaphanous ribbons and contrails that fizzle, fray, and fade into fibrous emptiness. She yawns to me because it's time to give it a rest. Instead, I'm treading an ocean, watching blood flow around my fingers as I press down on my arm. A magnet repulsed by another magnet. The cat walks to sit in the planter box hanging from the open window. I pulled the screen out for her. Dreaming is easier done than said the next morning. Her paws are buoyant. I'm sinking. I'm letting her loose. I'm letting it loose. I'm letting myself loose. So I have been reading a lot of the poet W.S. Merwin recently. He's a really, really cool poet and conservationist, and part of his life's work was he bought a portion of a former pineapple plantation and decided to reintroduce the native flora and fauna to the area. And because he goes into detail about kind of this process and the history of the islands, and that really kind of piqued my interest. And so I've read several books on the history of the pineapple, which sounds boring until you find out that it's really, really not. Because the pineapple has always been kind of appropriated as an interesting symbol all over. So at one point it was used as it was called the king pine, and it was considered a sign of the divine right of kings. It's also been at the heart of a lot of different labor issues and some abuses of power when it comes to labor and the workers who actually pick these and grow these pineapples. But it's it's really interesting because it also is all tied up in colonialism and a lot of all the global forces that have shaped our world kind of have shaped the pineapple as well. So this next poem is called Pineapple Poem. There's a pineapple on my kitchen counter, and I turn it so the afternoon beam of sun will rest on the part of it that is most green. Pineapples are supposedly ripe when they're shipped, and the color you're waiting on is a matter of personal preference rather than taste. After lunch, I go and turn my pineapple. It's the world's slowest vegetal turntable. If I keep turning the pineapple, it won't get riper. Flies will gather, the table will stain, and its skin will prickle into maroon. My pineapple is from the Philippines. The pineapple isn't aware of labor or the movements of labor. It makes its slow rotations because of me. The pineapple is actually from Brazil. It didn't go to the Philippines to find itself. This is because the pineapple is a mirror. In the rough scales of its skin is reflected human desire, prismed and doubled on time and regality, increased and fractioned more and less at the same time. But in the end, the skin is dull. It's turning maroon. It's not turning. I am turning it. I am desiring, and the shadow of my desire is bruising into maroon. So this next poem is about, planning your life, and I think that, as we live our lives, it's really easy to, be very goal-oriented, and there's a strong desire to achieve, and there can be kind of a danger in planning away all of the magic in your life. And so this is a poem that kind of reflects on having a lot of your life ahead of you and trying to figure out what to do with it all. So this is called Demarcations in an Ace Hardware. You sit in the sticky faux wood embrace of the break room. Sit with your microwave mac and cheese and try to balance life on the tip of a pen. You'll make a circle or a sphere. Make it years long at the spoke and archetypical. Make it platonic. Trajectory is a prediction. Discuss this new shape in shadowy rivulets from the other plane that touches the edge of our own when staring through long hallways. Take your life, perhaps fattened and succulent with the sun, and plate it in copper. Do this by turning your back to the ocean. I meant the other one. Copper is finicky and semi-precious, so avoid eye contact when sandblasting your reflection. Fill the tanks and hum with the current pushing you, pulling you, being you for a moment. Life should now be slower than usual, but not sluggish. It will deform at the edges. Not be mutilated, but deformed, unformed by the newly added mass. You will need to prop it up with beauty in places. Where the copper is pooling in green, beauty is easily acquired at your local hardware store. It should look like a 2x4 twisted in the kiln. Useless. But its inside is identical to its outside if you split it open. It should have the consistency of blackened sea bass. You probably already have some laying around, but don't recognize it. You'll counterbalance one abstraction against another, and this will complete your 5-year plan. You can show it off to your friends when you feel bad about yourself. It will spoil in 2 years or less. I had the opportunity to swim out into the Atlantic Ocean this summer, which was a really cool experience. Swimming into a body of water that large, you can't help but thinking about all the water you're touching and how all that water is touching so much and how so much else, and how expansive this body of water you're in is. It boggles the mind, really. So this is a poem that kind of came out of that experience. So Roll. At night, shapes dissolve and plane outward in flat swaths of murky-tinted suggestions. The dirt wakes up, the leaves caress one another, and a train echolocates to the emptiness of an unseen horizon. I'll sit in my room and not dream and slowly count all the ridges on the back of my teeth in a slow ivory procession until my tongue is sore. Reading is dreaming in focus. The night becomes a puddle, then a stream, and finally an ocean, where I'll shiver until I'm numb. There's no bottom to it, no muddy sandbar to graze with wandering toes. There's not the comfort of landmarks, just water and shreds of seaweed. When I'm far out enough, and the waves are undulations and not waves, I can stretch out onto my back. My arms and legs can become the four corners of the earth, while the seawater slides over my chest in cool saline ripples. It's when I'm stretched out like that that the rocks on the shore tell me the truth. That poetry is pissing into the ocean. A moment of warmth, when the internal and external are the same for a moment. It's fluid, easing away from the ego. Then that moment is gone, but it happened. It's now the ocean, but the ocean isn't it. At some point, I'll have to roll back onto my stomach and swim towards something, even if it's just more water. I always feel like I take a lot away from experiences of like dislocation or feeling out of place, and nothing does that better than international travel, where you have jet lag and you don't know where you are exactly, and there's a language barrier. With everything that's so unfamiliar, you really start to interrogate and think about the things that are familiar, and I think you become a little bit more aware of them, a little bit more conscious and mindful of the things that you do know. And that experience inspired this poem. So this is Ferns in Istanbul. When the sun rises in Istanbul, the Bosphorus melts from black to gray, and I sit and chew the stems of ferns. Walking to breakfast on cabbage, soft cheeses, and heavy squares of cantaloupe sweating in a bowl. The streets are filled with stray cats, who are not like ghosts, who are climbing up one uneven wall to another. I feel alone in English, and drunk-sounding in guidebook Turkish, uneven, sluggish, and slurred verbs broken at the wrong point. A piece in collage, a linguistic pictogram. Strong tea in a fluted glass, unwaxed cucumber in a dish. I want to lay in the sun. I want to become the sun. The dish for the cucumber. I am a fern instead, swaying, spine extending, not turning, in exhale. Only so many days are left. Alright, so this last poem I wasn't initially going to read, but with the fires going on in Oregon and California and just all across the American West, I felt like I had to. It's been one of the worst fire seasons on record, and I've had some not necessarily close calls, but I've been up close with forest fires on a couple of different occasions, and watching a wildfire move and seeing the power and destruction of the natural world in that scale it's intense, and it makes you empathize in a different way with these kinds of events. So I'd like to dedicate my reading of this last poem to everyone who's been displaced by the wildfires that are going on right now. So, The Brianhead Fire. The end of the world leered over the ridgetop when a speckled wind slithered east. A shadow extended until the sun was a solid red coin without a face. This pillar, lighter than air, cooled the close morning shade, hazed the dew on the lawn with soot, so massive you could never look at all at once. I could taste the burning hair when it crossed through the cattle pastures up the canyon. The cliffs melted into vermilion like a stain. Then they were gone in the smoke. It was already on the edge of town. Wood smoke, almost white, turns black when buildings start burning. Deer and a few pronghorn walked onto Main Street unafraid and started chewing planter boxes. Ash didn't drift in like snow. It fell, like cartilage spat back onto a dinner plate. I sat on the porch and heard coughed hymns from helicopters tilting out to the reservoir and back again. I listened for when the trucks turned off their sirens because no one else was on the road. And that concludes my reading. And those are my poems. I hope you enjoyed them. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.